Hey guys, it's Chase back here with the lounge. It's just us today, first show without a special guest.
Yeah, but we got an exciting new feature today. We got the phone working, so at certain points in the show, we'll be asking for you guys to call in. Just quickly, the number is 203-254-4002. We'll give you guys that number again when we're going to take calls. Okay, so we'll start today with the Jets and Saints. Big game there, obviously.
Yeah, it's a huge game. We got the Jets somehow upset the Saints, one of the teams that many people say is one of the best teams in the league. I don't know how this happened. The Jets, Smith didn't have a good game, but Chris Ivory did great.
Well, I'll tell you how it happened. I mean, the Saints just looked really, really bad. Lots of questionable play calls. I mean, the two interceptions breezed through were tipped off the guy's hands and then picked off. You got 4th and inches call at the end of the game where they try to run reverse and just get loss of yards for about 7. And also a 3rd and inches dropped in the hands. It was going to be a first down to extend the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Jimmy Graham was the only receiver for the Saints that I saw did well. And he wasn't even a receiver. He's a tight end. But, like, I feel like maybe it was Rob Ryan out coaching Sean Payton. Sorry. Out coaching Sean Payton like he did Belichick earlier in the season. But this team, like, with, again, using the same mentality of running Chris Ivory, who they got from the Saints coincidentally, trade for a 4th-round pick in the draft earlier this year. But they just ran Chris Ivory. Granted, it wasn't a lot, 18 carries, but he did well on when he did carry. 139 yards, 7.7 yards per carry. That was great, and I think that's what definitely helped the Jets win. That and Breeze's 2 interceptions. Granted, they weren't his fault, but still.
Well, how about Chris Ivory? I mean, playing against his old team. Saints never have that good of running backs, so obviously it's kind of the same thing as Reggie Bush. We're seeing him now with the Lions just blossoming. It's the same thing with Chris Ivory. I mean, even Saints running back this time, Pierre Thomas with only 24 yards.
Yeah, Pierre Thomas, he didn't do too well, but granted, they only ran him 6 times. I think they're putting too much on Breeze. He had 51 passing attempts. It's just, I think, Grant Breeze is a great quarterback. He still did throw for almost 400 yards, but they need to run the ball a bit. Maybe take some time off, give the defense a little time of rest, and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's talk about how where the Jets going to go from here. I mean, it seems like every week they win, and then they lose, and then they win, but this is a different kind of win. This is a win against a top 5 team. I mean, if beating the Patriots was good, this is exceptional. I think this win basically doesn't give the Jets a playoff berth, but if you're not thinking that the Jets are going to be there, then there's something wrong, because this was huge.
This one was huge. I don't know what to think of the Jets because they'll lose to teams like the Steelers. It's just like, but they'll beat teams like the Patriots or the Saints. It's just like they're up and down. If they continue this way, they're going to end up 8-1 with some big upsets and some big losses.
8-8, right? Not 8-1.
8-8. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, well, the Jets have the guys, but Geno Smith, another game with no touchdowns, only 115 yards. So I've said this before that he's definitely, I don't think he's the quarterback of the future for them, but I mean, he's pulling out these wins, and that's really all that matters. So great win for them.
Yep. Well, as I I've said in previous shows, I think that Geno Smith is just going to end up being another Mark Sanchez. Gosh, I'm not doing too well today. But Geno Smith, he's not having good games, but this team with a solid defense and a solid running, just like what Mark Sanchez had, is just winning these games. But maybe this happens for a year, maybe for 2, but there might be a big come down later on where people just tend to not like Geno Smith like they don't like Mark Sanchez now.
Well, the Jets are pretty lucky here because they basically finished off the hard teams that they need to play and held their own against them. Now they finish up the year with Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami. These are all Oakland. These are all teams that they can beat. Only one team left that's over 500. So look for this team to make a run. Don't think they're going to beat the Patriots out, but I think they'll definitely get in the wild card spot, and they proved it this weekend.
Yeah, I think that they're definitely going to make a run for the wild card spot. I wouldn't say it's there yet. You still got teams like the Titans, the Dolphins, Chargers. Maybe we don't really know yet. Making a run at it, so I wouldn't say it's guaranteed yet.
All right. Well, obviously that game's an upset, and there was another upset this weekend, the Thursday night football game, Dolphins versus the Bengals. Pretty big game for me. Kind of a walk-off safety. It's only happened 3 times in the NFL. That was a weird game. So, I mean, I know, Chase, you like the Dolphins here, but I don't think this really means anything. Just a bump in the road for the Bengals. All good teams are going to go through it. I think the Dolphins had lost 4 in a row before this game. I don't think this showed much in terms of the Dolphins season. I think they're still not going to make a run.
I want to say that they're out of it, but you never know. If they can turn on the switch and act like they were the first 3 games, this game they really didn't, so there is definitely back into what you're saying, Coleman, with them not doing it. But this win, regardless, is still putting them in position to at least attempt a run in a weak AFC. They can still make a run. I couldn't count them out yet. It was a big game. It was a big game because Bengals wanted to show that they're elite. I was talking last week about they need to win the majority of these last games because the Bengals don't have that hard of a schedule left. And if they can win 7 out of their last 9 games, I'd say then you can definitely say they're elite. There's no doubt about that. But this loss to the Dolphins, just like they want to be elite, and people might want to or maybe not want to consider them elite. But if they're going to put that elite tag on themselves, they need to be winning games like this. Well,
Andy Dalton, obviously he was getting hotter throughout these last few games. 5 touchdowns last week, but basically laid an egg in this one. 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, sacked 5 times. The 5 total sacks ended up being a loss of 36 yards, so you're not going to win when that happens.
Well, I think part of what happened with the Bengals was that they relied too much on Dalton. He's a good quarterback. He's not great, never has been, and this year's been big for him because he has been playing fairly well. Nothing amazing, but he has had good games and bad games. It's not like he's been Geno Smith with the team winning. He has led his team to some wins, not his team leading him. But what they need to do is they need to choose how they manage their run game better, because you look at their 2 running backs during this game. They had Giovanni Bernard and Green Ellis. The stats for Bernard are 9 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns with an 8.8 yards per carry average. That is crazy. I don't know why they wouldn't run him more when they stuck with BenJarvus Green Ellis, who had 21 carries for 72 yards. That's less than what Bernard had in his 9 carries. It's just he's had a great rookie season, and they're in a timeshare, but it seems like the timeshare is on Green Ellis, he's not an old back, but he's not producing the way he should, which Bernard is. And I feel like if they put on Bernard, maybe run out the clock more, that would have helped the Bengals a lot more. Granted, the Bengals were pretty much better on every statistical end other than turnovers in this game, with 28 first downs as opposed to the Dolphins' 15. Their third down efficiency was 10 for 20, while Dolphins were 3 for 14. And they held the ball for 40 minutes, and the Dolphins only held it for 28. It's more than 60 because of overtime, but when the Dolphins have these numbers, they need to win these games. It's like everything's on their side, and you can't afford to just lose to a team that you're clearly playing better than.
Yeah, I think you bring up Giovanni Bernard, that he's definitely on the way to taking the starter role from BenJarvus Green Ellis. He already has more touchdowns, and he's averaging more yards per carry. But how about the Dolphins? I mean, some people may want to say that this was a huge win for them. They're beating a great team like the Bengals, but I just didn't see it. There's a lot of aspects of this game that show that the Dolphins are not a team that's going to make a run. I mean, their last, I believe, 5 or 6 drives, as they're going down the field in the fourth quarter, trying to get the win, the game's in overtime, this is how they ended. With a punt, another punt, 1 field goal, a punt, a punt, a punt, and that was it. Their last 6 drives, that's how it went, and that's not going to cut it if you're trying to make a run. So I think just a bump in the road for the Bengals, as I said. Not too much out of this game, but it's always fun to examine the upsets.
I think it's a bump in the road for the Bengals, but also it's holding them back from being elite. Do I see them not making the playoffs or not winning the AFC North? No, but it does give, I guess, the Ravens room for contention, especially with them playing next week. And I like this Bengal team, and I want to see them be elite. I wanted them to win this game. Not that I have anything against the Dolphins. I just don't. But I think the Bengals can be this elite team, and they're always one step behind it.
All right, so that is the recap for the Bengals and Dolphins. How about we talk about the Monday Night Football game last night? Packers and Bears, big game. Rodgers gets injured within the first couple plays, and this is really going to change the season for these Packers. They're already plagued with injuries. Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, Jermichael Finley, and it's just the worst time of the season for Aaron Rodgers to go down. And I honestly don't really see them overcoming this unless he gets back pretty quickly, but he's already projected to miss 3 to 4 weeks. We can see where they go from there, but I thought that Josh McCown played a great game for the Bears, and he really stepped up when it mattered and got them a much-needed win without Jay Cutler.
Yeah, Josh McCown, I saw him when he stepped in against the Redskins. He had a good game. I think he looks, for a backup quarterback, you don't usually when a backup quarterback, he just comes in. He doesn't really have the persona. He doesn't have the confidence. He just doesn't look the part. When Josh McCown comes in, it looks like he's been doing this for a while. Granted, his play might not match that, but I think as a team, it gives them confidence with a quarterback that at least looks like he knows what he's doing and has come close to winning these games and has won like a game like this, Chicago versus the Packers. And it's big. This win for the Chicago Bears, granted it wasn't against the Packers team with Aaron Rodgers, it puts them back in the mix for winning the NFC North with the Lions and the Packers. Last week we didn't even talk about the Bears when we were talking about the NFC North race with the Packers and the Lions because we thought the Bears were pretty much out. But with Cutler possibly coming back next week, and even if he doesn't, they're playing the the Bears. The Bears are playing the Lions. Sorry. It's going to be a big game, and if they can come out with this win, it's going to make this whole race change in a matter of 2 weeks from who's at the top and who's at the bottom.
Well, we'll talk about the Bears and Lions games a little bit later in the show, but this is now very interesting for the NFC North. You got 3 teams sitting at the top at 5-3, and all of them have question marks. I mean, we don't know when Jay Cutler is coming back. He's supposed to be back this week. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is out now. And even the Lions have had some weird games this year where they probably should have won. But I want to talk about that even though the Packers didn't have Rodgers, this was still their game to win. I mean, they blocked a punt. That's a huge motivational momentum shifter and motivation, I guess. And they recovered a weird onside kick just right out of the gate right after a score. So this Packers team definitely had chances to win. It's not like the Bears are blowing them out and just running the game over. But this is definitely going to be fun to watch as the season continues.
One thing I want to mention about the Packers, though, I know they lost this game, but there was one good thing for the Packers that I saw, and it was the emergence of their running game. You had Eddie Lacy, who had 22 carries for 150 yards, and even their backup, Starks, 6 carries for 40 yards. Nothing too amazing from Starks, but I think this is the first time we can actually say the Packers have a legitimate threat in the running game, when as opposed to before where it was just Rodgers and I feel like just in the passing game and their great receivers. I think this is definitely a new Packers team from what we saw in 2010 when they won the Super Bowl, and I feel like they're definitely a team to be reckoned with. I think it's the running game that kept them in this game because they did not play good on any front other than that.
Yeah, Eddie Lacy, what a huge game for him. And I think this is extremely important for the Packers to have him and to have a running game because if you think of some of the top quarterbacks in the league and the teams they play for, there's never really a true running game and a true standout guy. I mean, you look at the Saints, and they have big-name guys, but they never use them correctly, and now as they're getting on new teams, they're shining. The Packers have never had that great running game. Even teams like the Colts, when Peyton Manning played for them, and Tom Brady. I mean, you never hear the top 5 or You want to make a point?
The Colts had Edgerrin James.
Yeah, but even that was just when he was gone. I mean, it's not like the Colts just failed. A lot of the top 5 to 10 running backs are on other teams with not the greatest quarterback, and you usually don't see that great of a dynamic duo of a quarterback and a running back with when the quarterback is just outstanding. And I think this could be huge as long as the Packers use Lacy correctly in the future season, because it's a rookie year and he's playing really good.
If he can keep this up, he's going to be one of the better backs in the league. He's just seeing him run. He runs aggressively, and it's just hard for people to tackle him. I like watching him play, and it seemed like there were times during this game that it was Eddie Lacy doing pretty much all the work for this Packers team. Because I feel like without him, this would have been a blowout with a backup quarterback starting with the Bears against a backup with the Packers.
Well, one of the things that stood out for me in this game, and is an even bigger issue going through the rest of the season, is not Aaron Rodgers being out, but it's how the Packers D played. Without Clay Matthews, they just looked awful. They had a lot of chances to get a sack, I thought. They're surrounding the quarterback, but just not exploding off the line and not getting to him. And then they couldn't even get off the field at the end of the game. They let the Bears convert on 4th down. They basically let them run the ball down the field and give the chance for the Bears to kick another field goal, which meant the Packers had to score a touchdown to win. And I just didn't like how they looked at all. They had chances to intercept the ball that was dropped. And, this is going to be a big deal going forward.
I think it is. I think this game's just going to show a lot, not just in the NFC, not just in the NFC North, but also there's a wild card spot that I think one of these teams is probably going to get. As tough as the NFC is, I think that one of these teams are going to make a strong run at getting it. But all these teams have had great games and bad games, lost to good teams and bad teams. It's really hard to say where any of these teams are headed because there's so much unknown about them. But let's move on to our next game. We want to talk about the Chiefs versus Bills.
Yeah, you guys know how I feel about them. I think they're honestly the luckiest team in the NFL with just the teams they've played so far. One win over a team that's over 500, and that's the Cowboys, who are sitting at 5-4. So it's not even like they've beaten a top 10 team in the league yet. Maybe you can put the Cowboys there, but I wouldn't. And then again, the Bills just dominated that game. They had 470 total yards. The Chiefs had 210. That's over double the yards by a Bills team that's playing an 8-0 Chiefs at home.
And that's led by Jeff Toole.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like this Chiefs team at all. I like the guys on the team. I mean, Andy Reid and Alex Smith, 2 great guys, but I don't like how they play. And then it's this defense that's saving them, and I don't like how the offense is running.
I think this defense is one of the best I've seen in a while, but they can't maintain this. I think, as not saying any 9-0 team's bad, but I think this is the worst 9-0 team we could ever see because granted, the Bills have always stayed in games, and that's just what they're known for doing. They stay in a game, then lose it in the 4th quarter. But if the Chiefs are really that good and are really as good as their record shows, then they shouldn't even be close. They won by 10 points, but for the majority of this game, it was close. And the Bills were even leading at halftime, up 10-3.
Well, yeah, there was a weird. The receiver on the Bills caught it and then basically took 2 steps and just dropped it. I guess the Kansas City D forced it, and they picked it right up and went in the end zone. And then the Bills quarterback basically threw an interception around the goal line for a 100-yard reception. Mm-hmm. And then, so, I mean, without this Chiefs defense, there's no way they're 9-0. And Alex Smith, again, with a pretty unimpressive performance with only 124 yards and no touchdowns.
I still think it is a testament to the Kansas City D, though. As bad as this team offensively is, I feel like this defense has done an amazing job at keeping this team together, at winning games for it. You rarely see a defense literally being the major factor in a game other than just being there, having a few good plays, but it's usually the offense that gets things done. It's the opposite way with the Chiefs. The defense is really making this team win and go 9-0.
Yeah, so the Chiefs are going to head to their bye week this week. We'll see what Andy Reid's going to work on for them. They have 2 huge matchups coming up, not next week, but they are playing the Chargers twice and the Broncos twice. So we're going to head to a commercial break. We're accepting phone calls this week, so that's pretty exciting. We haven't used it yet, so we apologize now if there are any technical difficulties as we try to figure it out. But we're excited, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. Maybe if you want to comment on something we've talked about, if you disagree. The number is 203-254-4002. Again, that's 203-254-4002. We'll be back.
It might be the door alarm, or the new safety drain covers, the pool fencing, even the swim lessons. But the fact is, you can never know which safety step will save a life, until it does. Adding multiple safety steps to your safe pool practices can mean the difference between a close call and a call to 911. Simple steps save lives. To learn some new ones, visit poolsafely.gov. A public service message from the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, the American Red Cross, and YMCA of the USA.
Can I have a price check on aisle... ma'am?
Yeah.
Don't look down, but there's a giant python wrapped around your leg.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's probably nothing.
Nothing? Shouldn't I don't know, call someone?
No, I don't have the time. I'm late as it is. If it keeps up, I haven't looked at.
Are you sure? That's a pretty big snake.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, though. You're very sweet.
You wouldn't ignore this, so why ignore the signs of a stroke? If you or someone you know suddenly experiences numbness of the face, arm, or leg, or sudden trouble speaking, seeing, or walking, don't wait to get help. Call 911 right away, because time lost is brain lost. To find out more, visit www.strokeassociation.org or call 1-888-4STROKE. This message brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Energy Hog to team! Get in that house and waste some energy!
No problem. It's got leaky windows and no attic insulation.
This house is under attack by energy hogs. They show up anywhere energy's wasted.
Luwasha, it's not Energy Star rated.
You have the power to get rid of energy hogs.
Someone's home! And he's got energy-efficient light bulbs.
Go to energyhog.org for fun games and lots of hog-busting tips.
Energyhog.org? That's it! Get out of there!
Wait for me!
Brought to you by the Alliance to Save Energy, the Department of Energy, and the Ad Council.
Hey guys, we're back with the lounge, and we had Damien on the line, but we may have hung up on him. We are not sure. Hopefully he'll call back. As I said before, we're working the phone the first time. We're rookies here, so let's quickly talk about the Pats game. I'm sure Damien was going to talk about the Jets. We've had him on the show before. You guys know him. But how about the Patriots? I mean, finally they're looking like themselves. Big game by Brady, over 400 yards. Exploding with 51 points. That's the record this year. And I'm sure every Patriots fan out there is very happy to see this, looking like the Super Bowl champions they've been.
Yeah, I like this. I like this Patriots team. They came out with a win they needed against the Steelers. The Patriots, like Tom Brady, looked good for the first time in a while. This team looked like it was running on all cylinders, had 55 points. Granted, the defense led up 31 to a pretty bad Steelers team, but I like the team, and it looks like they're getting back on track.
Yeah, I mean, basically every offensive player on the Patriots scored a touchdown, so that's pretty big. I mean, what else can you say? They're having that was a great game for them. It's been a tough season so far, but that was a great win. I mean, the Steelers, if you had any hope of them being in the playoffs, that's basically done. I think we got Damien back on the line now, so we're going to put him on.
Yeah, I'll call him again.
Damien, you here?
Yeah, can you hear him? Can you hear Coleman?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I hear you.
All right, Damien, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to say? We're here.
All right, I just want to talk a little bit of Jets. I know you did in the beginning, but
yeah, go ahead. That was a great upset by them. We'll talk about them all you want.
Exactly. Just wondering, I think they're going to get into the playoffs. Do you think they run away with it in the East, like maybe taking it from the Patriots for the first time in a while, or do you think they just kind of float around in the wild card race?
Well, that's a good question. It's been all over the place. on ESPN. That's a big story. I don't think they're going to run away with the East. I think that it's going to be close. Maybe the Patriots clinch the East in the second to last game of the season. You still there, Damon? Oh, Damon's gone. All right, that's fine, though. We got your question. For me, I think they're definitely going to slip in at the 6th spot. Obviously, we've talked about the Chiefs and Broncos getting in at the 5, whoever doesn't win that. And I think that the Jets have a very good shot. Some other contenders for that would be the Chargers, maybe the Titans, who are also 4-4. But just a great win for them. And if I was a Jets fan, I'd be very happy. And I think Rex Ryan's doing a very good job.
I think Jets fans have to be happy, but I don't think they're just going to run away with it. I think the Jets have been too inconsistent so far. They're, again, if they keep playing like they have been, they're going to go 8-8. They're going to have some big wins on their plate and on their resume to get in the playoffs, but that's not, you need, like, it's a quantity of wins that you need, not what wins you do have to get in. So, granted, the rest of their schedule's easy, but we know they can lose with some bad teams and beat some good teams. So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, pretty unpredictable so far, but you guys are sitting in a good spot. How about we send it over to Chase for his Redskins game. They're beating the Chargers. I know Chase said before the show that he thinks the Chargers are out. I don't think so yet, but let's hear what he has to say.
I think this was a big win. This was a big game. It showed the Skins are still in the playoff hunt. Granted, they're 3-5, but the NFC East is so bad that that 3-5 is still a game and a half out. So I think it's big because it keeps the Skins still in playoff contention, and I think it kicked off the San Diego Chargers. I like the Chargers. I think they're a good team. This might have just been like a game where maybe Phillip Rivers didn't play as well, which he didn't. He still had a good game, but I feel like the Chargers offense just couldn't get anything really going, and especially that last goal line stand where it's been a problem with them throughout the year, just not being able to score when they're on the goal line or score a touchdown. They'll have to settle for a field goal, and I really think this game showed it. And I think that the rest of their schedule, they still need to play. They play the Broncos next week. They play them again later. They play the Chiefs twice. We know we've talked about them as not being the greatest 9-0 team. That doesn't mean they're a bad team at all. And then they still play the Bengals, who are still a very good team, even though they just lost to the Dolphins. I feel like this team is going to, like, if they can pull some of these upsets, yes, they'll still be in it. And maybe if they upset the Broncos this upcoming week, I might put them back in contention. But as of right now, I don't see them overcoming this Broncos team. And I don't really see them getting to the playoffs, not because of how bad they are, but because their schedule is just too tough compared to some of these other teams.
Well, I don't want to put them out yet. I mean, as I said with Damien, that I think this is a team that could give the Jets a run for that 6th wildcard spot. I don't think they're the favorite right now, but I do want to see them play the Broncos and see how they play. Maybe even if they don't get the win, if they're within a score, a touchdown or a field goal, I would definitely consider them to be a probable team to make the playoffs. But how about we talk about my team for a minute? Nick Foles just going off, ties the record for touchdowns, which Peyton Manning did the first week of the season with 7, over 406 yards. Over 400 yards with 406. Deshaun Jackson with a great game, 150 yards. Riley Cooper just being absurd right now. And just kind of like with the Patriots, almost every weapon the Eagles have got a touchdown there. And they needed this win. This is the Eagles we saw in week 1. They're now at 4-5, one game behind the Cowboys. And they're playing a Packers team this week that is pretty banged up, and they have the chance to win here. And I mean, anything can happen in the NFC East, and I don't think if the Eagles lost that there would be any chance they'd make the playoffs. But now all Philadelphia's rejuvenated with that win, and we're all ready to go. We're ready to see them make a run. Still don't know if it's going to be Mike Vick or Nick Foles. Foles pretty unpredictable with that game he played against the Cowboys, which was awful. But great game here, so you got to give it up to him.
Yeah, Foles had a great game with 7 touchdowns. In the press conference afterwards, someone asked him, had he ever thrown 7 touchdowns in a game? He's like, only in video games. And I was just like, it's crazy. 7 touchdowns. He's tied the record with a bunch of other quarterbacks, including not Tom Brady, but Peyton Manning, who did it earlier in the season. But I like him, but he needs to prove that he can continue doing this. And if he can do it against the Packers, granted they don't have the greatest D right now with Clay Matthews down. Their secondary isn't looking too well. But I think that I don't know what to think about this team. They just upset the Raiders. Granted, they're not a good team, but they look like a very good team. And it's going to be interesting. It's just I always say this about teams, staying consistent, and those are the teams that usually do well. And I think teams just need to prove. Teams like the Eagles need to prove that. And this game against the Packers is going to matter a lot, because if they can win this game, not only would it be a win, which they need to try to take this NFC East, which is still up for contest with the Cowboys, Eagles, and Redskins, and even the Giants aren't too far out of it at 2-6.
Yeah, 2-6.
2-6, and that's not that far out. I think that if Eagles can manage to beat the Packers, that's a win that both Dallas and the Redskins don't have lost to. I think that's going to matter a lot when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I've always said it's been it's really hard to be an Eagles fan because you just don't know what you're going to get. They come out of the gates exploding on week 1. Vegas goes from a 50-1 chance to win the Super Bowl to 25-1. They get a nationally televised game next week with the Chargers, and they have a heartbreaking loss. Then they play the Cowboys and can't score an offensive touchdown. And then even with the Giants, too, no offensive touchdowns. And then they come against the Raiders, who aren't a bad team, and get 7. So it's hard to be an Eagles fan. And the lows are low, but the highs are very good. And we got to see where they're going to go. So quickly, just some other notable games. Carolina won against the Falcons. Cam Newton with a great game. They're now 5-3, and interestingly, only one game behind the Saints in that NFC South race. So that was pretty big for them.
Another big game was Tennessee versus St. Louis. It might not have actually been a big game, but Tennessee's still in the run for this AFC wildcard spot. You can't count them out, and that win against St. Louis they needed. Granted, it was against a pretty bad St. Louis team with Kellen Clemens at quarterback.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I don't see the Titans as being any threat at all. Anytime they've played a good team, they lost to the Seahawks, they lost to the Chiefs, they lost to the Niners, and so I don't think they're anything. I mean, I guess it's good they beat the Rams, but how about almost 2 more upsets? The Seahawks over the Bucks barely, and the Colts over the Texans barely.
I don't know what to say about the Seahawks. I don't think anybody saw that coming with the Bucks up 28-7 at one point.
Well, I'll tell you the problem. They don't run Marshawn Lynch enough, and I don't know why. He only had 9 carries going into the fourth quarter, and then ends the game at 21 and basically won the game for them. So that's their problem in my eyes.
No, that definitely makes sense. I don't think Russell Wilson's as good as a lot of people are saying he is. He's a good quarterback, but he's nothing great, and he can't handle a team like people think he can. He's not the guy that wins the games. It's a team effort for the Seahawks. It's not like the Peyton Manning Colts or where it was just pretty much him like winning all the games for him. It's definitely more of a team effort from the Seahawks. And then if you look at the other upset, near upset, you look at the Colts almost losing to the Texans. I'm liking what I see out of Case Keenum. I want to see him play more before I can just say he's definitely going to be a starter next year.
Well, he's also got Andre Johnson to help him out, who had a huge first half, and then the Colts figured it out and shut him down.
Andre Johnson, but I like Andre Johnson, and he was very good, if not the best receiver out there 4 or 5 years ago. But right now, he hasn't had a big game. This is the first time he's had a big game, and I don't know how long. I'm happy to see him do well. I like Andre Johnson, but he hasn't been like the top 10 receiver a lot of people name him as for a little while, and might prove it. But I want to see this Texan team do well. I like Case Keenum. I'm hoping he becomes the quarterback they've always wanted. And I was disappointed, especially after Gary Kubiak went out with his mini stroke. I hope him and his family is doing well. But after they went out, Wade Phillips, who's now the interim head coach, he probably just wasn't prepared to take over the head coaching job. But that team lost momentum, scored, I think, a field goal the remainder of the game, and just allowed this Colts team the defense just sort of allowed the Colts team to just come right back in and win it. And I feel awful because the Texans had this game in their hands, and it was evident after the first half that the Texans were definitely the better team.
Yeah, it just kind of sums up the season they're having, and I think at this point they basically just have to chalk it up and get ready for next year. It's sad, but that's how sports work. How about the Cowboys barely beating the Vikings, another unpredictable team here? DeMarco Murray only getting four carries in the game. That's just ridiculous. So these Cowboys are another weird team, and of course they're in the NFC East, so I don't mind it because that's who the Eagles have to go against.
Gosh, I was just looking for this Cowboys team to lose. Being a Redskins fan, I know, Coleman, you had to be, because we want the Cowboys to lose. They're at the top of the East.
It's funny that they're America's team, but yet no one likes them. So
they're America's team because anywhere you go, you end up having one or two annoying Cowboys fans who aren't even from Texas. They just sort of hopped on the bandwagon, just like Yankees fans. They're the Yankees of the NFL, and I don't think a lot of people like them. They just call themselves America's team because, I don't know, they used to be good.
Well, ESPN, I don't know if ESPN or Forbes or someone put out who the most liked team is, and they've been number one dating all the way back to 1996, and I think even before that, but that's just how long the records had gone. So there is proof that they are America's team, but everyone hates them. Everyone wants them to lose. I wanted them to lose, of course. They almost did, too. So,
well, I think they have the biggest fan base, but they also have the most people against them at the same time. So there are going to be a lot of people that like them.
Kind of like the Yankees.
Exactly.
The Yankees of football. Or the Heat.
Plus, they have an owner who just goes out and buys big-name players as well, and who also decided that he should be the GM. I still don't get that. I don't think Jerry Jones should be a GM anyway. At least the last few years, he's proven itself. But I think the Cowboys, we'll see where they go from here. They had a big game against they needed that win. They had a last-second win, that catch from Dwayne Harris, who's won them more than one game now when they won against the Redskins in special teams. But they're going to have to prove a lot to go up against this Saints team, especially with the Saints being angry coming off that loss against the Jets. But we're going to head to our second commercial break. We're looking for more callers. The phone number is...
Well, we're gonna head to a break, and then when we come back, we're going to be previewing the games like we always do. And we're actually excited this week because there's finally some good games that we get to look at. The last 2 weeks, they've basically been awful. And then we'll take another short break later on, and we'll have you guys call in again and discuss, because we're going to predict who's going to win. We have some upsets we want to talk about. If you guys want to talk about, ask us if your team's going to win maybe, or if you want to disagree or agree with us about who we think's going to win. We'll have that for you. Again, the number is 203-254-4002. We're not taking callers yet, but look for that in about 10 minutes.
Hey, Mama.
Listen, if I could talk, I'd tell you I'm almost 2 and still not responding. That's one sign of a communication disorder, and delaying treatment can affect my development.
Many parents aren't aware of the early signs of speech, language, and hearing disorders, yet early detection and treatment can improve quality of life.
Come on, say Dada.
Ugh, here we go.
Identify the signs of communication disorders. IdentifyTheSigns.org.
There's no place like home.
Getting home safely is just a click away. Find the right seat for your little one's age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat for more information. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, sweetie, what's going on?
Well, honey, I have some news.
Okay, what?
All that training paid off. I got the job.
Oh, I knew you would get it. So when do you start?
When you donate stuff to Goodwill, you help provide job training for people right here in your community. Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council. We all know Goodwill. But did you know when you donate stuff to Goodwill, you help provide job training for people right here in your community? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't seen your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
All right, we're back. Let's talk about the Dallas and Saints game. Game of the week this week, Sunday Night Football. Two huge wins, huge games for both teams, and they're both must-wins. That doesn't really make sense because only one person is going to win, but that's how it is. The Cowboys desperately need this one. They need to beat a good team. They almost lost to the Vikings. They had a heartbreaking loss to the Lions. This would be huge for them. It would set them aside for now in the NFC East, which we just keep talking about because it's just the weirdest division out there. And if they're going to go ahead and prove to everyone that they're a team to beat, it's got to be this week. But the Saints need it too. I mean, the Panthers are only one game behind them, and the Saints have a very tough schedule coming up.
Yeah, this game's big. I wouldn't say it's just the most interesting division in the NFC East, but I think it's not even like a mediocre division because mediocre means the teams are at average 500. No, these teams are bad. The mediocre team is the team winning the league at 4-4 with Dallas, and they need that because Redskins and Philly are both hot on their trails. They're both trying to gain that number one spot, and both of them have a solid shot at getting there. And Dallas putting a win against New Orleans on their resume is big. It proved that they're a good team, that they should be in the lead right now. But at the same time, New Orleans is going to be mad. There's no way after losing to the Jets like they just did. It was like you could tell the Jets were just playing better than they were. I think that New Orleans needs to come out strong. They're going to come out, and I think they're going to come out strong against Dallas. And I think they're going to win this game. I don't think the Dallas defense can do much to stop Drew Brees, especially when he's angry after how bad they played against the Jets.
Well, right after the Cowboys, they have to play the Seahawks and the Niners, and then they still have 2 games against the Panthers. So I think this will be a fun. That's obviously huge for the Saints to get that win going into these next games because they need some confidence too. But another fun thing that'll be in this game is some 2 superstar receivers going up. Jimmy Graham, who now leads the league in touchdowns. He had 2 last week against the with a bad foot against the Jets, and Dez Bryant too, who kind of had an explosion 2 weeks ago. I don't mean by playing, I mean by his temper. He thinks he's the best in the league, and he's going again. Even though one's a tight end, one's a receiver, it's still 2 great receiving guys going up.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's like I'm not like both of these teams don't have the best defenses, and I think it's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of points scored, but I feel like Jimmy Graham's he's been playing great this year. Even when the Saints don't, he still plays well. He has over 100 receiving yards. He has 119 receiving yards against the Jets when everything else on the Saints was going bad. He is pulled out. He's had great games when the team just doesn't do well. And Dez Bryant, he's been up and down. He'll have good games, he'll have bad games, and when he does have good games, he plays great. So I still think he's a top 5 receiver in the league, and I don't think there's much doubt about that. Even if you were to count in someone like Julio Jones, or I wouldn't put Reggie Wayne there, but even if you count them with injuries, I'd still put him above a lot of these players. But they're both wins. They're both games that each team must win. Obviously, Saints because of the teams are playing next after Dallas, and Dallas just because they want to stay on top of the East. But I think I just don't see the Saints losing this. I think the Saints are too good of a team to lose 2 in a row to teams that they should beat.
Well, I don't think that the Saints will lose, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they lost. If you look at Tony Romo and Drew Brees, you don't think about this, but they're actually having very similar seasons, and maybe Tony Romo's even having a better season. Tony Romo has one more Actually, sorry, Drew Brees has one more touchdown than Romo at 21-20, and the yards are basically the same, both sitting around 2,600, and Romo has a few more completions than Brees, so this one could go either way. I think these teams are actually pretty favorably matched, even though the records don't show it, and I'm going to pick the Saints just because I don't see how they can lose 2 in a row, but I would not be surprised if the Cowboys won. So how about another game? The Broncos and the Chargers. This is basically, for me, the Chargers' last chance to save their season and put a mark on the NFL that they're here to play. And we'll see how this one goes. What do you think, Chase?
I think it's a big game, but I like the Chargers, but I don't see them beating the Broncos. The Broncos are just too good of a team. Their offense is going to decimate the not the 49ers, the Chargers' defense and secondary. I don't care how good they are. I don't think there's a team that can stop them just secondary-wise, and I don't see the Chargers having a good enough pass rush like the Colts did when they beat the Broncos, because that's all that's been seemed to work well against them, is just trying to get to Manning before he can throw the ball to one of his 5 open receivers, because he always has that. I don't like, and the offense is good, and they might score a lot of points, but I just feel like the Broncos are just going to come out, put up 50 against them, and the Chargers might put up like 30s or like mid to high 20s. I don't see them winning.
So you don't even see it's going to be a close game at all?
No, I think Broncos are going to take this one away. Not because the Chargers are bad, but because the Broncos are just too good.
Well, I think that the Broncos are going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, the Chiefs don't have a bad defense. They're 4th in the league against the pass, and that's obviously the Broncos' strong point. They're 6th in total yards. The Broncos' D has been a little bit of a disappointment this year, and anytime it's a division battle, I don't think you can necessarily say it's going to be a blowout. I don't think the Chargers get it done here, and I think this will end their season, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think that the Broncos are going to be challenged here. They need to be challenged too.
They're going to be challenged, but I maybe in like the first half, because the Broncos haven't been the best first half team this year. They usually pull out wins, so it might look like a close game going up to halftime. But I'd say halfway through the third quarter or by the beginning of the fourth, the Broncos are just going to pull away and put up some late touchdowns, just like that make this look like a blowout. Well, we're going to move on to one of our next big games, the Detroit versus Chicago game. This is a big NFC North battle. Both these teams are in contention. I recently count out Chicago to a degree last week, but now with this win over the Packers, it makes this look different. Jay Cutler might come back. We're not sure yet. Josh McCown might step in, but it's a battle against a very good offense in Detroit with Chicago, which has been doing okay overall.
Yeah, obviously a huge game here for the NFC North, and either team that beats this, any team that wins this game is going to be ahead in the NFC North, and I think will be the favorite, especially if the Lions beat the Bears, who just beat the Packers, and I think that's what will happen. The Lions are now coming off a bye week and coming off of Calvin Johnson's huge game. I think he's ready to go back at it. They're rested. They've now had 2 weeks to prepare for this Bears team. No one knows who's going to be the quarterback, because you can make a case that McCown should even start over Jay Cutler the way that he just played. So either huge game, either one that wins is going to put their stamp on the NFC North and probably will win the division. I don't know how the Packers are going to come back after losing Rodgers.
I like this Lions team, but they need to prove that they can win big games. Like they had big games with Green Bay and Cincinnati, both of which they lost. And I think this game, I don't think the Bears are. They're better than Green Bay now, but I don't think they would have been as good as Green Bay if Green Bay had Aaron Rodgers. And I think that the Bears aren't as good as the Bengals, but I think they need this win to put something, say like, we just won where we needed to. Granted, they beat Chicago earlier in the season with Jay Cutler, and that was their big win of the season. But I feel like they need to pull away. I think they need to win this game and beat Chicago, who's on the upswing. I think they need to win this game, and not only win it, I think they need to win by 2 possessions or more, just to try to say look, we're going to take this division, it's ours, and maybe prove a little bit of consistency at the same time.
I think as long as they win, it'll be fine. I'm definitely picking them to win. Who do you got?
I'm picking them to win, but I feel like even if they win this game, nothing's going to be settled. I feel like if they win this game by 2 possessions or more, I feel like it's going to be a clear first. I still feel like even if the Lions win, you can still make an argument for Green Bay when they get Aaron Rodgers back.
All right, so that's that game. How about our last game here, the 49ers and the Panthers? I'm sure going into the season, no one thought this would be as close as it is, but Cam Newton is actually having a lot better year than Colin Kaepernick, which you wouldn't think either. He's got 13 touchdowns. Kaepernick's only got 9. This is passing touchdowns. And he has over 300 yards more than Kaepernick, so not that much better, but he is doing better than them. And this Panthers defense is one of the best in the league. They are second in points given up and third in yards. So this is, and even the total yards between the teams for offense is, for points, Carolina averages 26 and San Fran averages 27. For yards, San Fran averages 325 and Carolina 300. So this is a very, very close matchup between these two teams. And I'm going to say that the Carolina Panthers get it done here and make their mark on the NFL and upset the 49ers, even though I don't think it's an upset. I think the Carolina Panthers are even with the 49ers, if not slightly better.
I'd like to say that, but they don't have any signature wins. The 49ers beat the Packers in the first game of the season while the Packers were fully healthy. I know we've talked about the Packers a lot this show, but the Packers are a good team when they had Aaron Rodgers, if not elite. You look at the Panthers, who have they beat? They beat New York, they beat Minnesota, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta. All of these teams are sub-500. None of them are doing too well. But the one thing that I'd say is going in the Panthers' favor is that with the San Francisco being a very run-heavy offense, they're second overall in opposing rushing yards, allowing only not even 80 rushing yards a game on average. And I think that what they need to do is stop Kaepernick from running, stop Frank Gore from running, force them to pass, make them set the tempo of the game. And if Cam Newton has one of his good days, because he'll just show up good and bad, granted the last 4 weeks he's been good, then I think that they can pull this away. But I'd still give the edge to the 49ers in this.
Well, even though the Panthers have not beaten any great teams, it's the way they're beating teams. They beat the Vikings by 25. They beat the Falcons by 24. They beat Tampa Bay by 18. So these are good wins for this Carolina team, and I think it's showing a lot. But we are going to head to a commercial. We will be accepting phone calls here. You can talk about any of the games that we just brought up, maybe if you disagree with who we thought's going to win, or if we didn't say your team and you want to know if they're going to win. And then for the last segment of the show, we'll be picking some upsets that we think are pretty probable going to next week, considering how many there were this week and how many were pretty close to being an upset. So we'll be right back.
Subir de peso fue fácil. Perderlo es mucho más difícil. Tengo que esforzarme todos los días. Pero con cada paso, reduzco mi riesgo de padecer diabetes tipo 2 y enfermedades cardíacas. Y eso hace que
Buenos días, papá.
valgan mucho la pena.
Aprenda cómo usted puede ayudar a ponerle alto a la diabetes, al perder peso, comer saludable y ser más activo. Visite portufamilia.org o llame al 1-800-DIABETES. Un mensaje de la Asociación Americana de la Diabetes.
Subir de peso fue fácil. Lo único que tenía que hacer era sentarme a la mesa y comer. Perder peso, eso sí, es mucho más difícil. Tengo que esforzarme todos los días. Pero con cada paso, reduzco mi riesgo de padecer diabetes tipo 2 y enfermedades cardíacas. Y eso hace que cada paso, cada opción, todos los días...
Buenos días, papá.
...valgan mucho la pena. Buenos días, cielo. Pronto terminaré.
Aprenda cómo usted puede ayudar a ponerle alto a la diabetes, al perder peso, comer saludable y ser más activo. Visite portufamilia.org o llame al 1-800-DIABETES. Un mensaje de la Asociación Americana de la Diabetes.
Lee Majors here. The flu season coming up, we all have to help protect ourselves by getting a flu vaccine.
And if you're 65 and older like me, you got to even be more careful.
Our immune system may not be as strong as it used to be, so we have to do everything we can to keep the flu from catching up with us.
So ask about your vaccine options, because if you're a tough guy like me, you may need a tough vaccine. Visit the National Council on Aging at ncoa.org/flu to learn more about your vaccine options. That's ncoa.org/flu.
All right, we're back. We're getting a phone call now. Jay's is going to go ahead and answer, but for now, I'm going to say my upset of this weekend. I think it's going to be the Dolphins are going to be upset by the Bucs. I think they played great last week against the Seahawks, and I think that this is going to transition over against the Dolphins. And both these teams have been pretty close this year. If you look at total yards, the Dolphins only average 10 more a game. The Bucs are actually averaging more points than the Dolphins. So if I had to pick one, I would say that the Bucs are going to take it.
I don't know if I see the Bucs doing much this year. I can't see them winning. Well, one, I don't think Schiano has it in him to win a game anymore in the NFL. I think he's going to be fired sooner or later, and I think he needs to. I feel bad for the Buccaneers because they're playing bad. They're playing Jaguars bad. I think that I don't see them pulling this one out. I just don't. Well, we're going to take our first caller. It's Evan Craig. He wants to talk.
Evan Craig.
Craig. Sorry. He wants to talk about the first time, about the Cowboys and if they're going to win the East. I know we've been talking about it before, but Evan, you're on air.
All right.
What do you got to say, Evan?
Well, I think that this is a huge game for the Cowboys, being that they just come off a win where they almost freaking blew it to the Vikings, and they're also coming off a huge loss to the Lions where they blew it, and they actually did blow it. So I think this game against the Saints could make or break the season, whether or not they could be a playoff team or whether or not, they end up missing the playoffs and, break every heart of every Cowboys fans like they've done for the past, couple of years.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying before. I think this is a must-win game, not only for the Saints, who should beat the Cowboys, but for the Cowboys, too. I mean, you're not going to make your mark on this NFC East team if you can't get a good win over the Saints, and if they lose, there's a very good chance that the Eagles could beat a banged-up Packers team and take that one, and even the Giants and Redskins are right behind, and the Redskins got a nice win last week over the Chargers, so this is a huge win against the Colts. I don't think they're going to get it done. I'm sorry to say that, but It's going to be close. And like I said, Tony Romo's having a very similar year than Drew Brees, and you just don't really think of that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see the Cowboys getting this done. It's just like, granted, they're winning the East right now, but I don't see them beating the Saints. I think the Saints know what they need to do. I think they're experienced. They're good with winning. Granted, last year was their one down year. They didn't have Sean Payton, but I think Sean Payton's going to bring something to this team that's going to make them win. I don't think the Cowboys. They have talent around them, and they always have for I don't know how long, but they never really seem to live up to it, and I don't see them winning this game.
So, Evan, I know your heart says that the Cowboys are going to win. They're your team. Does your head say it? Do you see them pulling this one out?
Well, here's the thing. The Cowboys' losses this season, all of their losses have been, I think, less than a touchdown each one. They had a heartbreaking loss to Kansas City by 1 point, week 2. They had a bunch of other losses that have all been, the last-second loss to the Lions from Calvin Johnson and Matt Stafford heroics. So they've been in every single game. It's just whether or not they can execute at the end of the game. That's the big question. So obviously I want the Cowboys to win, but whether or not they will is up in the air. I think it's a complete toss-up this game, to be honest, because the Saints are coming off a horrible loss against the Jets.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun and close game. Thank you for calling, Evan. We appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
All right, Chase, do you want to say your upset of the week? I have the Bucs over the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. We got about a minute left.
I don't really see many big upsets this week. That's the thing. I'd say I don't even know who to put as an upset. I'd say like I could see maybe the Carolina Panthers winning, but I don't know if that's an upset. I can see Chicago beating Detroit. I could see maybe even Philadelphia beating the Packers, but I don't even know if I could consider that a big upset now that Packers have Seneca Wallace at quarterback. But I think that I don't really see many big upsets.
Yeah, all right. So that basically concludes our show. Just want to bring up the Eagles real quick. I think that they will get it done against the Packers. I think Nick Foles will have another great game, and this is a good opportunity for them.
I also like to bring up the Redskins real fast. I think this Thursday night game against Minnesota is going to be a closer one than people think, but it's going to be a good game. And I just like to do one last shout out before the show's over. Shout out to Maryland Terrapins. Their basketball season starts this Friday against number 19 UConn Huskies, and it's going to be a good game.
All right, guys, that's our show for the week. Thanks a lot for listening. We apologize for any inconveniences we had this week with the phone. We're new to it. Should be better next week, and we're looking forward to hear from you guys. We'll be back next Wednesday, 3:30 to 4:30.